Italy's Pizza. I want to show you how to compete in the largest pizza stretch competition. It's a competition you'll find at the World Pizza Games held in Las Vegas at the International Pizza Expo put on by Pizza Today magazine. And you'll also find this in Italy at the World Pizza Championships put on every year by Pizza and Pasta magazine. It's a competition that I've won several times. I won it over in Italy at the World Pizza Championships in 2004 and also won it several times on a national competition held here in the U.S. And I just want to use this video to show you some of the tricks and techniques that you can use to get a better placement when you do compete, get a better idea and understanding of how it all works. Each competition, of course, is a little bit different. In year to year, some of the rules do change, but the basics are always the same. You have a dough ball which you take to as big as you can, and usually the time frame of about 5 minutes. And you know, it is important to make sure you do know the rules well in advance, because it will change the way you compete a little bit. So it's very important that you make sure you get a copy of the rules well in advance, study them, and make sure you understand the competition from start to finish, so you can concentrate on doing your job without worrying about not following the rules and being stopped or started in the middle of the competition. Just a quick overview of some of the rules that you'll find at the World Pizza Games. You've got an 18-ounce dough ball, 5 minutes to make it as large as you can, and using whatever means necessary. Your hands, your feet, your head, whatever you want other than a tool, such as a rolling pin. Now, any holes, you can have some small holes, basically some small pinholes, but pretty much anything bigger than a dime needs to be closed up when you're finished. So you'll start off on a table. You'll work the dough however you want, and once you get to a certain point, you can come off the table. You can slap it, you can spin it in the air, whatever you want to do to make it bigger. But at the end of that 5 minutes, it needs to be on the floor, stretched out in the shape you want it, stuck down, made as big as you can, whatever you can do to make it big. Holes bigger than a dime, you need to close those up or we'll be disqualified. And you want to make sure that it's nice and symmetrical, because the measurements they take, if you got more of an oval-shaped pizza, it could hurt you rather than a nice round dough. And just a lot of different rules. And you can get most of these rules at our website at www.worldpizzachampions.com, or you can also get some of these rules at pizzaexpo.com. The World Pizza Championships over in Italy, a little bit different. You've got a 500-gram dough ball. Pretty much all holes have to be closed up. You can rip it wide open if you want, but when you're done, it needs to be all fixed, all patched, and put back together. One rule that they've recently added over in Italy is once you decide to lay it on the ground, you have 10 seconds to get it all finished and rounded and the way you want it on the ground. We're at the World Pizza Games. At 3 minutes and 30 seconds into it, you're allowed to put it on the ground if you want. You've got a whole minute and a half to play with it on the ground. World Pizza Championships in Italy, you only got 10 seconds. So a lot of these, those are some examples of some rules you want to make sure you understand going into it, or it can totally throw you off. And I'll go over a lot of the different techniques, but you want to make sure that you're prepared for hard dough. You want to make sure you're prepared for soft dough, because you'll need to have a different plan of attack for each kind of dough. If you go into a competition and the dough is going to be really soft, well, then you're going to need to change the way you do it. You're not going to be able to spin it above your head as much. If you got really hard dough, you're going to have to totally change your plan of attack, because it's going to take a lot more work to get that out to size. So you need to have two plans going into it: hard dough, soft dough plan. And you just want to be prepared for all of those things and have a backup plan in your mind for each time you go. Now here I am at the competition table. I've got the dough ball and the flour. You've got a bed of flour, dough ball in the middle of it, and this will typically be how the competition will start. Keep in mind, none of the competitions are you allowed to touch the dough ball before the judges tell you to start. Take a good look at the dough ball. Make sure the dough ball is round. Make sure there's no obvious defects, no holes, no tears, rips, things like that. A lot of times you can get a new dough ball if you point these out before the competition starts. Some of the basics you want to bear in mind before you actually start. Make sure your nails, your fingernails, are trimmed back as far as you can get them, smooth, filed down. This will keep from tearing the dough as you're working the dough. Any jewelry on your hands, make sure the jewelry is taken off. Wedding rings, engagement rings, anything like that, make sure you take those off, put them in your pocket before you start. Those will snag the dough as well and tear a hole. Some other obvious things, just make sure you're well rested, make sure you're ready to go. You don't want to go all the way to across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe and right to the competition. You've paid all this money to go to and you're tired and you can't compete. So just simple things like that. Make sure you're wearing loose-fitting clothing. Make sure you're wearing something that won't restrict your movement. Kind of like this. Make sure you can move around freely and you're not going to have to worry about it. You go to grab the dough and you get snagged on your clothes. Just a lot of obvious things like that. Make sure you bear those in mind. Now, before you actually start, as you practice and you get ready, you want to make sure you have the entire competition played out in your head. Make sure you know what you're going to do. The judge says go. I'm going to do this for 10 seconds. I'm going to do this for about 30 seconds. This for a minute, that for a minute. You've got to have this in your head, practiced over and over, just like you would practice for a play, or you know your lines. They're memorized in your head. So is a competition like this. The important thing is to have someone there at the competition telling you the time, a friend, a colleague that can actually be timing you along with the judges and can yell out the time to you from the side of the stage. That's what you would prefer to know. If you want to know every 15 seconds, every 30 seconds, me personally, I like to know the time every 30 seconds. I want to know when it's 30, when it's a minute, when it's a minute 30. And that way I know, okay, it's time to move on to this, it's time to move on to that. One of the big things you have to prepare for is the inconsistency in dough. From one competition to another, from year to year, there's going to be a little bit of difference in the dough. A lot of this has to do with water. A lot of it has a lot to do with the flour, whether it's being held in the winter, the fall, the spring. Different times of the year will yield a different type of flour. So you're going to have some hard dough, some soft dough. You need to have plan A, plan B. If you get hard dough, you need to know you move to plan A. If you've got soft dough, you move to plan B. This may involve working a little longer on the table, working a little longer in the air, a few less slaps, a few more spins, things like that. So be prepared for all of those different things that come at you. You want to be prepared for every different scenario.